Welcome to the Critical Few Actions to Improve Your Business podcast. I'm John Downs and I'm here to help you cut through the overwhelm and prioritise what matters most to improve your business. Let's get started and discover the critical few actions that have the biggest impact. Today, I've invited Damien Lacey to come back again, this time to share his experience and his approach to continuous improvement in operations. As I mentioned in our previous episode, Damien's been working in the lean manufacturing space and formerly with Toyota for many years now. And I often introduce him to clients when they have operational performance improvement issues. Damien, welcome.
Thank you, John. Great to be here again. I always enjoy our chats.
A pleasure. So Damien, today we're going to be talking about how medium business founders and CEOs can use continuous improvement to drive better operational performance inside their business. To get us started, how do you view operational continuous improvement and how did you first get involved with it?
One thing is there's lots of terms that gets thrown around. You got continuous improvement, you got lean, you got operational excellence. There's a lot of overlap with them. A continuous improvement system is a set of operating tools and principles that your business uses to do a good job, right? To equip your team to do a good job and perform well, right? And a lot of businesses will look at establishing a continuous improvement program. That's to get that system in place. A lot of businesses don't have it in place. They need to get one, so they kick off a continuous improvement program to break it into steps and milestones and actually, create it for themselves. So that's just a little bit about. So to answer your question, how did I get started on this? Ex-automotive engineer, started working in Robert Bosch, a global automotive tier one supplier. They were rolling out this very thing, a continuous improvement system. A Bosch production system was the term for it, and I was part of the team, and they were rolling out these methods for the first time in Australia, and it was a really great experience to be part of it. A lot of the tools and principles and ideas come from Toyota. They really are, a benchmark example that a lot of organizations use to compare to. And I was keen to learn from the source, and so I joined Toyota and spent a number of years in product development, reducing cost of products, reducing cost of processes. Spent a few years in Japan as well. So Toyota City, worked there for a number of years. Yeah, and just really had I won't say beaten into me, John, but it was.
I would say the chip was implanted in the forehead, David, for what I've
that's right. Yeah, but it was a formative experience, really
forever
great
changed.
experience. Permanently changed. But yeah, really strong culture, things can always be improved. We should always be looking to save cost, get better, reduce lead time, whatever. It was just really lived and breathed. So it was really, really great opportunity.
Fantastic. So continuous improvement means a lot of things to different people, from continuous improvement of products to continuous improvement of financial performance to continuous improvement of staff performance and skill levels and so on. Today, I want us to focus on the operations of the business, making a product, distribution of a product, or delivering a service. Continuous improvement in all of those operational areas of the business. Damien, where do we start and what are the principles we need to put in place?
Yes. So where do we start? Right. I won't sort of launch into what to do and break that down in a lot of detail. I think a good analogy that I like to use is that of an athlete, right? Let's consider your business as an athlete. Now, what are the fundamentals? What are the non-negotiables for an athlete that's looking to perform well? Okay. If you look at any successful athlete, they'll just be doing some fundamentals really, really well. And that's the foundation. And that's really a way to think about your continuous improvement system within your business. Okay. So the athlete, let's sort of think about it. They need to get their nutrition right. They need to eat carbs, protein, vegetables, drink water. They need to do their exercise, cardio and strength. They need to rest properly. They need to have some sort of feedback performance, sort of feedback method. So a coach that's reviewing their performance, making sure that they stick to their plan and maintain discipline. And then they've got a plan, right? What am I doing today? What are we doing this week? What am I doing this year? How does that fit into my career? So those are just fundamentals. It's nothing special about that. There's nothing groundbreaking about it, but all of those things are absolutely essential for success. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nutrition, exercise, rest, feedback, planning.
Yeah.
Those things are just not negotiable. Yeah. And every athlete needs to be doing that well. And so continuous improvement, your continuous improvement system is kind of like that for your organization. What are those non-negotiables that we really should be doing well as an organization? And I'm not talking about, well, we're going to get a brand new IT system, or we're going to develop the next, Apple iPhone, or dramatically different product or service. This is not that, right? Continuous improvement is not about transformation. It's about the fundamentals and doing that really, really well.
Gotcha. So if that's the case, how about we translate that into something that we can really get our teeth in? So can you tell me about a typical client to walk us through that process, perhaps in manufacturing, to help us understand that?
Yeah, sure. So a short example, one that comes to mind, a truss and frame manufacturing plant. Okay, so these are the timber trusses and frames that people build houses out of, save some time out on site. They get them made in a factory. So a particular business I'm thinking about, they're successful, doing about 70 mil revenue. However, their throughput and their productivity wasn't great, wasn't what it could be, wasn't what it should be. Management knew that it wasn't the best that it could be. So orders were taking too long to get through the process. It could take them on average about 4 weeks from when the order was received, detailed, manufactured, delivered, and they wanted to reduce that. And also they noticed that the productivity, the labor hours per job, okay, that would fluctuate dramatically. And there was no really good reason why. It wasn't like, oh, the machine broke down on Tuesday. We had to do a lot more manual stuff, so the labor went up. It wasn't anything like it. Just used to bounce around quite a lot. And so we worked with them on a lean program, on a continuous improvement program, and did the fundamentals. Did things like cleaning up, tidying up, 5S workplace organization, and another thing was visual management. So having numbers to tell us how the plant was performing, sharing that as a team, talking about the problems and coming up with ideas to fix it. Now, I'll be honest with you, John, when we walked into the plant, we did the analysis, we could see a lot of waste, right? There wasn't a great sort of tension or pace or energy in the factory, right? There was people walking around slowly, stopping to have a chat, wandering around to search for tools. And, we couldn't say, hey, you guys need to get your act together and work faster, right? That's not really a recipe for success for management, motivation.
But I imagine that the CEO was absolutely gritting his teeth every time he walked out into the factory and felt that, geez, we could actually just be, if I could inject a little bit of electricity into this place, it'd make a hell of an impact.
That's right. And there's no point saying, oh, everyone's slow, right? So the task was to get everyone to understand that, right? So that's where that visual management board, that visual performance management project was really important. So let's get the team together. How should we measure ourselves? We all watch sport. We wouldn't watch it if there wasn't a scoreboard. What's the scoreboard for us? Breaking that down into sort of 3 or 4, simple numbers. Let's collect that data and put it on a graph and have a meeting every day, every week to review the score and figure out where we could get better. And you know what? One of the simplest things was understanding that we can do more than I think it was 40 jobs a week they were doing. They were building 40 houses worth of trusses and frames a week. That was sort of on average what they would do. And that was just a golden rule to say, we can only do 40 a week. And so when we get orders from the customer, we tell them, this is our fixed schedule. And if it's the 41st, job number 41, it's got to go into next week, right? And so on. And so that would set their timeline and their customer delivery agreed schedule. Well, when we started looking at the numbers, there were times when we did more than 40 jobs a week. Did 45 just because of whatever that week required us to do. And there were weeks where we did 20. and the productivity would bounce around considerably. So on average per job, if it was a busy week, what do you know? The number of hours taken to do the job went down, right? If it's a busy week, everyone's working faster, the pace goes up, we can do it, we can get it out. When it's a slow week, what do you know? The number of hours per job skyrockets. People are taking their time. They're just working to the schedule, not working to a set cycle time. So we looked at the numbers and said, guys, you know what? We can do 45. We have done 45 a week on many times. So how about we start to set the bar not at 40 jobs a week, we can do it at 44 and just see how we go. And so there wasn't any change other than an awareness that we can do this. We should raise the target. And, that had an immediate impact on productivity and lead times. But, that had to happen from the team understanding their performance with numbers and agreeing, yeah, this is what we can do. And it also, it was also partly other improvements like cleaning and tidying the workplace and sort of different material supply issues, etc. But yeah, it wasn't any sort of magic, new machine or anything that drove that improvement. It was the team looking at their work as a process, looking at the numbers and saying, we can do better.
And so what were the key impacts that they realized?
Yeah, it was lead time and productivity. So lead time reduced from, I think it was 4.3 weeks on average down to about 3.8. So that was, they were able to deliver their jobs faster and profitability improved. I think it was just over, it was $550,000 of profitability improvement. And that came from both the cost reduction of less labor hours per job, but then also the ability to do more within a fixed time frame. So that instead of doing 40 jobs a week, they're doing 44. So that's gonna improve your numbers by the extra revenue that you can push through.
So that's one hell of an achievement. But I guess the question that'd be on everybody's lips was, well, I've been doing 40 jobs a week, and sometimes we do 30 jobs a week, and we just spend more time not doing them or doing them. And there'll be another 40 jobs next week. Why the hell should I do 45 anyway? What are the challenges in getting them to see the issues and change behavior? Because change is never easy. And nor is it just a matter of, showing the new way, expecting the light bulb to go off and everybody's feeling rosier in the garden. So how did you go about that process? Because it's easy for us to sit out in management land or leadership land and say, this would be really good for the business, when they're probably also looking at it and saying, well, is it really good for me?
Yeah, it starts with frontline leadership. If your shop floor supervisor doesn't engage, doesn't believe, doesn't drive this, then you're gonna struggle. So, and it was interesting. There was 3 teams that we worked with. 2 out of the 3 team leaders were really good, and were able to get the team to shift towards, look, as long as we're not late on jobs, we're doing okay. Versus, no, it's Tuesday. We've got 5 jobs to do today. Doesn't matter if Wednesday's a slow day or a fast day. We've got 5 jobs to do today. We're going to do the jobs today on time, right? And they were able to work towards a set cycle time per job. Whereas the 3rd team leader was just very much like, look, we're going to get the jobs done, right? And they won't be late by the end of the week. And we've always worked this way. So, why are we giving each other a hard time on this? And look, he couldn't, reach the new standard or awareness, and he did have to be moved on. That's not obviously your first solution that you reach for, but in that instance, that had to happen, right? But by and large, if you can set a target, it's reasonable. People understand their input on it. They want to hit that target. And then they engage positively with what you're actually asking them to do.
And as you say, what gets measured gets managed. So what were some of the changes in the key metrics or new metrics that they started to measure?
Yeah,
I mean, were they just doing the same stuff, just moving faster, or were they looking at the way they were doing things and the way they measured things differently?
Well, there was both of that. Yeah, so it was the measures and the work being done, right? So the measures. So you get numbers for costs, quality, and delivery performance. So cost was driven in the production area largely by labor.
Yeah.
So we started measuring labor hours per linear meter. It's a technical equa level of complexity of the truss, if you like.
Yeah.
So output per labor hour, right? That was a measure that we started to look at and care about. You know, it's not did we get it out on time as opposed according to the standard schedule. Is it no? We're going to look at our hours per job out and make sure, you know, that we hit that number. And why didn't we hit that number? And the guys were then looking at their processes in terms of waste. Hang on, I've got to, you know, sometimes stop during the middle of the week and go and cut noggins, right? Smaller pieces of timber. I've got to stop my process. I've got to go over, get some timber, go to the source, cut it down, replenish my workstation, and then get back to the job. Well, hang on, that's stopping us getting work out the door. Maybe we should have that as a standard job for someone to do so that we never run out and the line doesn't stop, right? So this sort of awareness started to drive that behavior. I have to sometimes stop and look for tools and materials. We should really have everything we need in front of us, organized. So that drove workplace organization improvements. So the numbers, the measures, and then awareness around waste drove the actions to make themselves more efficient.
Fantastic. So Damien, this doesn't just apply in the manufacturing sector, does it? I mean, it's not just production lines. Can you take me through an example in the delivery of, say, services?
Absolutely. So this sort of stuff, it's fundamental wherever there's a process, wherever there's work happening according to a process, these sorts of ideas, principles will give you benefit. So services, one that sort of springs to mind is some work that we did with an Australian bank. So it was the personal loans processing department. So they were, let me bring some numbers up just to remind myself so I don't get it wrong. On average, they were taking about 5.3 days to process a personal loan. And as you can imagine, personal loans, not huge amounts of money. People usually go out and get a few different quotes, right, before they land on a supplier. And the other competitors in the market were able to get an answer back to an applicant a lot quicker. They were taking 5.3 days. And they were just losing jobs because they were too slow. They were just losing the opportunity. And so only 8% of their loan applicants were turning into customers.
All right.
So what we did, we looked at their process from end to end, got really clear, okay, what's the balance of work across all of the departments? So, you know, there was the data entry around the loan application step, there was the assessment step, there was a verification step, a step where they confirmed the sale with the customer, then the documentation getting managed, and then the loan drawdown and approval, right? So there's all these different steps, and there's different people at each of those process stages. So getting clear about how the labor was balanced and how the loan applications were flowing through each of those, I think it was 8 steps, because it would fluctuate. You know, sometimes it'd be a bottleneck in the data entry step. Other times there was a bottleneck in the document preparation step, and creating that flow and making it visual allowed the management team to reallocate labor where they needed it, and also to cross-skill their team so more than one person could do each step.
Right.
You know? There's hundreds of loans. They move through the different stages. Sometimes you got a busy day at the front. Sometimes you got a slower day at the back end of the process. So they needed to dynamically sort of watch what was going on day to day, hour to hour, actually, and make sure if there was a bottleneck, if there was a step where there was loans that hadn't had their assessment done, well, let's get people on that step and clear it so that it's flowing through. So that was, you know, creating a visual management performance board and creating that sort of daily management routine allowed the leaders in that process to better allocate labor and get things flowing through the process. And so then you're probably asking, well, what sort of results did that generate? So loan decisions, they were able to get it from 5.3 days down to 1.8 days. So within just
Oh,
under
wow.
2 days, and because they were able to get their answers back faster, the conversion rate then improved. So it went up from 8% to 18%, which, led to, several $1 million of profit for the bank. Yeah. And again, it wasn't sort of a magical new IT system or, something of that nature. It was really just understanding the process, skilling their team across each of the steps, and balancing the labor on a day-to-day and hour-to-hour basis.
Mm. And I guess, when I think back to that question about, the getting people to change their behaviors, sometimes we look at it and sort of say, okay, all you did was got them to work faster. And so basically you plugged them into the 240 wall, and if they didn't move faster, they got a shock. And that's not the case. Really, what I'm actually hearing is that in a lot of these cases, what's actually happening is you're actually identifying areas of frustration and annoyance for the staff involved. So, great, I'm almost through this trust, and now I've got to go and spend an hour cutting up, 50 noggins so that I can get onto the next bit. Whereas if I had them here, I'd be through this damn job and it'd be out the door. Great.
That's right. Yeah.
I've got a roadblock in this personal loan approval process, and I'm waiting on somebody to do something, or I'm being interrupted by somebody else and I can't get it done. And again, so if I can eliminate these points of frustration, so then that allows me to do my job easier and better. So it's not so much a matter of I have to run faster and turn myself into a sprinter because I'm not a sloth. It's more about, okay, how do I take the annoyances, the frustration and the inhibitors out of my process so that I can just do my damn job?
Yeah, that's right. And looking at the loan application one, it was very much getting them working as a team, because there was about 45 people across 8 departments, all managing the process from end to end. And so before we had that visual management board, they'd all be operating in silos, doing what they could do. I'm having a great day today. I'm going really fast. There's no queue of loans behind my team. Okay, that's great for you. But 2 process steps down the track, there is a queue behind that team because they're slow and they're falling behind. Now, how can we help them as an overall team? It was kind of like, if you look at the footy analogy, right? The back line might be doing great and having a great time, but the forward line's, really struggling. We don't just sit there, go and help them, right? And so the visual management board and the daily management board allowed everyone to come together as a team and see how things were going at each of the steps, and work together and help each other to make sure that the loans are going through the whole process fast.
Are you looking to pinpoint the areas that will make the biggest impact on your business? Check out the Organisation Performance and Value Diagnostic. This powerful tool lets you evaluate your business on multiple facets and provides email reminders to keep you on track. Head over to criticalfewactions.com.au and get started now. So you mentioned visual management board a number of times, and you've probably seen hundreds of them. For those who haven't seen hundreds of them, can you describe what that really starts to look like, say in this example of the service operation in the bank?
Yeah, sure. I mean, am I allowed to show something on the screen, John?
Yeah, you can show me something on the screen.
It'd be great for your audio listeners.
Yeah, well, we can incorporate these principles and some of these graphics into the ebook that comes with the episode, so they can easily download that and have a good look. In fact, that'll probably be good for anybody watching it or listening to it.
Yeah. So this is the slide here. Let me draw people's attention to this picture. There's some people standing around. It's a whiteboard. So shock horror. It wasn't a digital dashboard. We did get to that eventually, but it started with just a whiteboard, and it had each of the process steps, and there was numbers there to tell us, like, how many people have we got in each team for the day?
Yep.
And how many loans have we got in the queue behind, or how many loan applications have we got in the queue behind each step? So if we've got 3 people and we've got 30 loans behind us, whoa, that's a lot. right?
Yeah.
So, but the next process step down, let's say it's the verification process step. They've got 5 people and they've only got 4 loans behind them to get through to the day. There's an imbalance there. We can see that straight away because of the board, right? Maybe we can shift some of the labor from the underutilized areas to the ones that are over capacity and help balance things out.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're at let's say it's step number 4, verification. And we've found a lot of errors here, guys. We've gotten like 10 errors in these loan applications that have been coming through. What's going on? Oh, really? We've actually had Judy start. She started last week and she might not be fully up to speed. Maybe we should, nip that problem in the bud straight away and fix that issue instead of waiting longer. These sort of things, you've got the board, you've got numbers, you've got a shared goal, and it's a forum to talk about, how do we get through the work today? How do we share resources? How do we solve problems together? Right. And they didn't have that forum well established. It was ad hoc. It'd be when there's a problem. No, we do it every day. And we've got the numbers, and you bring your numbers to the meeting every day.
Yeah.
Populate the board so we can all manage the process together.
Right. Excellent. All right. I'll get you to unshare so I can just concentrate on you again.
No worries.
So that really does help understand, this visual management board. It's not necessarily a digital scoreboard that tells us how many people are in the call queue and how many minutes did it take me to resolve the call in hopefully one interaction. It's something that can actually be pulled together and relatively quickly and fine-tuned relatively easily without building a whole bunch of technical infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, that's the other common hurdle with this sort of stuff is that we kind of look at what perfection should be and think, oh God, I'm going to need to get sensors and I'm going to get data and I'm going to need a software engineer and I'm going to have to create a dashboard and put it on an internet. Whoa. Like maybe you should do that eventually, but you don't need to do that straight away. Maybe get the team together, get 2 or 3 numbers, put it on a board, and then just start talking about it. Right? I mean, that's the core of it.
Yeah.
Teams looking at numbers, figuring out if there's a problem and solving that problem.
Yeah.
And the tech is something to help that process go faster and maybe record data more reliably. But, that can, we don't want to let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
With
done
this sort of
is
thing.
better than perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Damien, how common is this sort of problem? I mean, is continuous improvement for everybody else apart from us, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely everywhere, right? So every business that runs an operation according to a process will get benefit from these kind of tools and principles. How you apply them was always different. Like you can't copy and paste the Toyota production system and just apply it to your organization. You can learn from it and you can get ideas from it. You can get inspiration from it and even templates, but obviously it needs to be tailored to your particular scenario and with your specific team.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, if I think about the Toyota principles, there's 14 of the things. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization. They've been polishing and finessing and challenging this thing for some time. If I tried to bring 14 principles into any client, remembering, of course, that I've got this thing called the critical few actions sitting in the back of my mind, 14 of anything just says overwhelm, forget it. To me,
some of them,
what would be some of those critical few if we're only going to focus on a few of them?
Yeah, absolutly.
What are the big hitters?
There's a couple of good points what you're saying. Yeah, there's a couple of good points there. You said that they developed this over years. It took them 100 years or over 100 years to get to where they are now. And, some of them are just not even relevant to most businesses altogether. One principle, for example, is we only use proven, tested, stable technology. And that makes sense for them.
Yeah.
Because they make a very, very complex car and they put it all over the world and there's so many people involved. You can't just be making gambles, right?
Yeah.
That is not going to work for other businesses. In fact, that would be like a death sentence
for most medium businesses, many of which are innovating.
Yeah, that's right. So we've done a lot of work with a lot of companies on continuous improvement, operational excellence, and so we've put together sort of a fundamentals program,
right?
With the idea that really it doesn't matter what business you are. These are things you really should adopt, right? You really should have a clean and tidy workplace, right? You should have visual performance management boards in place for your key departments. You should have a routine for level 1 and level 2 active operations management. So they're meeting every day to talk about the work, and they're meeting every week to plan sort of the next 1 to 2 weeks. That really should be there, as opposed to just sort of doing it every day the way they're sort of seeing fit. We should have some way of getting feedback from our customers and engaging and understanding what your customers care most about, et cetera, et cetera. There's a few sort of fundamentals that we think every business should be working on, right? Now, you're not going to take all of that on at once.
No.
You probably want to focus on 1 or 2 of these fundamentals at a time and no more.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we're being honest, it'll take you, depending on where you're starting, it'll probably take you a few years to get there. To really have these core practices, core principles embedded in your business, it's going to take you a few years. Okay. And so that's a journey that you need to map out. So that's a continuous improvement program that we talked about.
Yeah.
You need to map out that program over the next 2 to 3 years and say, okay, we're going to focus in on these first 2 things, going to do them well, and then move to the next, and so on.
Yeah.
But, every business owner, every CEO will be saying to themselves, yeah, we do. We need a clean and tidy workplace. We need standard procedures for critical processes. We should have measures of performance in place and teams using those numbers to manage the business. These are things that no self-respecting CEO would say, oh, no, we don't need to have numbers to tell us how we're going. It's a nonsense, right? So we assess where you are at the moment, agree on the gap we're trying to close, and then map out that program and support you on the execution of it.
Sure. And so who should be leading this process? Because this is not an insignificant journey to embark on.
Absolutely. Look, it has to be top down. I mean, there's just no other way it can happen. So the senior leadership team, the CEO, the MD, they've got to agree this is why this is important and this is what we're going to do. And the what you're going to do, that's going to be different. Like some business will want to make a lot of change within a relatively short period of time.
Sure.
So other businesses will say, no, we need to work on sort of 4 or 5 things over the next 18 months. And that's enough for us. We don't need to, completely reinvent the organization. So the leadership team needs to define that what, and then work together on how we're going to execute that. But it absolutely has to be led by the leadership. It has to be top down. Yeah. And then you support your team from the bottom up.
If you really want to kick off your strategic planning and work in a supportive environment with other CEOs and leaders, the CEO Masterclass in Strategic Planning and Implementation is for you. This 10-month small group course helps you craft your strategic plan, present it to a group of peer investors, and develop a habit of monthly implementation. Our waitlist is open now at criticalfewactions.com.au.
And so typically, what do you see as the 1 or 2 big hitters in those sort of the 7 principles that you look at in your program or the tools? What do you see as being those big hitters, the number 1 or number 2, that virtually every organisation needs to get sorted?
Yeah, look, the things we normally start out with, it can change for organization, but the thing generally is, visual performance management, that's a fundamental, and, workplace organization, especially if you're a manufacturing business.
That's the sort of the 5 S principles.
There really are the fundamentals. You'll make quick wins, you'll get an immediate impact, and then that sort of builds momentum for further work. You eventually want, standard work happening, teams following a process, getting used to that idea. 5S visual management's a great place to start to embed that.
Yeah, good. And what are the gotchas when I'm setting this up? What typically goes wrong that I need to look out for and avoid?
Yeah, I mean, things we see commonly that sort of gets in the way is not having the confidence to push past the naysayers, okay? Yeah. You're asking people to change. Some people have done things a certain way and they like the current way of working,
Mm.
and you're asking to do something different that they don't necessarily understand. And so they start to throw hurdles in front of that process. And, a less than effective leader will say, hey, listen, I need to keep my team happy. I've got my frontline leaders. They're the engine of the management team.
Mm.
They don't want to do this. Let's just pause this for a while,
Yeah.
So that
You're always
happens.
going to
That
have a
does,
naysayer who says, oh, yeah, we tried this back in 1944 and it didn't work.
that's right. So
We
there
didn't
needs to be a
implement it
little,
properly. We didn't know what we were doing, but it didn't work. And so therefore we'll never try that again.
yeah. So there needs to be a bit of confidence that, no, this is the right thing to do. Whether we do this or not is not up to Barry or John, the supervisor. We're doing this, and it's not up to us to try and convince you to do it. This is what we're doing for the reasons we've laid out, and you need to tell us why you can't get on board. And by the way, you have to come up with a reason to get on board.
Make it work? Yeah,
that's right. So that would be a little bit of timidness on the behalf of management. Yeah.
People it usually starts and stops with people.
Yeah.
And Damien, you're a medium business. How have you applied this in your business? What are the continuous improvements that's given you the best benefit for your business?
Yeah, look, that's right. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, John. So myself and a couple of colleagues, we acquired a manufacturing business at the start of the year in February. So it's a steel building design and manufacturing business called True Steel Fabrications. So I encourage your listeners to give us a call and buy a shed. No, so we've taken over that business, and process is a big thing that we need to establish. It's a small to medium sized business. So for us, the key process that was in most need of love and attention was the sales process. And so we've really zoomed in on the sales process and tried to get clear, okay, what are the steps we take to really understand the customer? What are their requirements in terms of their shed? How do we make sure the design exactly what they need? How do we convey that we are a really trusted and quality provider for them, and without putting too fine a point on it, asking for the sale, right? So that's an area where we've really zoomed in and tried to do a better job than what was happening previously, and really standardize that sales process and do a great job and take the customer on a journey, which is yielding some positive results.
Fantastic. So Damien, if a founder or a CEO is looking to start utilising continuous improvement in their organisation, what critical few actions should they start tomorrow if they did nothing else?
Yep. Good question. Look, I would just, as a leader, get clear on what you want your organisation to look like. I think going back to that athlete analogy, like what are the fundamental things that you want to see happen in your organisation, but really understand where you are. Once you understand what the gap is, then you can start to build a plan to do something about it. I see, a lot of business owners will have aspirations, but it's fuzzy and it's vague. So really getting clear on what you want to see happen in your organization, that's probably the first step. And that's generally where we start with our customers as well. So we do a gap analysis. Where are the gaps? What do you want to see happen by when? And then we can build a plan from there.
Yeah, great. Well, would we be able to incorporate that assessment process into the ebook so that people can get
that's a great idea
on what they need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a self-assessment checklist, and you can prioritize and plan from there.
Excellent. Fantastic, Damien. We'll incorporate that into the ebook that goes with the episode. I think that would be really helpful. Damien, as always, it's been a delight to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, John. Look forward to the next one.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Critical Few Actions podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and grab the downloadables from the show notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you share it with your peers and your team. Stay focused and take action. The Critical Few Actions podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only and is not individualised business advice, nor can it be relied upon as such. You must take responsibility for your own advice, decisions, and actions.